Ladies and gentlemen, the wait is over. The Philadelphia 76ers season is finally here. The dark days of the offseason are now in the past as the team has officially reported to training camp with Media Day kicking off today. We got a chance to look at each of the new players in their threads, a peek at everybody being back together, and the vibes were high around Media Day. There was one particular storyline that really stood out to me. I've seen it get a lot of coverage, but I want to make sure we give this guy his flowers, as Joel Embiid said he has lost 25 pounds, 25 to 30 pounds, particularly in the offseason here. His direct quote saying, quote, "I think I lost about 25, 30. Still got a ways to go. Still want to be more, but it's a process. We got to do whatever it takes to make sure that in the postseason, I'm healthy." He mentioned that he was also fine physically, which is a good story to hear. We know that he's constantly dealing with something, and frankly, I think it's been more harmful than people have acknowledged. Some of the injuries that have lingered into the offseason for Joel. Just looking at last season particularly, though we know he was battling a bunch of stuff, he had to get his knee right. Whenever he's battling or having to come back from those type of injuries, it limits a great deal of what he can put on himself from a training aspect, and that's where we start to see a lot of these fitness and, a little bit extra weight with Joel. I know I'm giving him a bit of a pass here, that obviously there's other ways you can go about it, whether it be the low impact treadmill, the training bike, things like that you can do, but there is no way to replicate true basketball repetitions and basketball shape without just playing the sport itself. So I'm grateful that Joel got a chance to do that to the highest extent at the Olympics, and I think it's great news that he is focused in on taking care of his body and dropping weight in that regard. And there's a ton of positive takeaways to be taken from day one of the Media Day here. I think Joel specifically took the stage and handled himself exactly as you would hope here. We did get a peek at the big three together. Look at Tyrese Maxey, look at Joel Embiid, and look at Paul George. Yes, this is for real. Yes, this is real life, that this trio, the best in the NBA, is ready to represent Philadelphia. And that big three quote, or what we have right here, is Paul George specifically was asked about it, and he said, quote, "This is the first time I've played with an elite point guard and big man all at once," which I know that ruffled some feathers across the NBA circles, but I don't think Paul's wrong to any extent, and the people throwing like names like Steven Adams is kind of a comp here with the Russell Westbrook and Steven Adams, where there's levels to this thing, and Joel Embiid is quite a few tiers above the conversation like that. But there were some other notable quotes I did want to touch on here. Paul George as well was asked about how good these Sixers stack up, and he said, quote, "I think we're top 3 in the East. Got to be respectful to Boston and New York. I still don't think there's anyone that can guard Joel Embiid." And that is the story here, as we know what a talent the big fella is. 34.7 points per game last year, 11 rebounds, 5.6 assists per game, 1.7 blocks, 1.2 steals. Shot a ridiculous 52.9% from the field overall. And by the way, 57.1% on corner threes. That's just an absurd number there. And what really stood out to me about the version of Joel Embiid that showed up to Media Day today was disappointing. I wasn't able to make it down to the facility myself. Had to juggle another one of the jobs that I didn't have a chance to make it down there, and ultimately was working all day. But had a chance to tune in from the laptop and check out his kind of the way he carried himself, hear his responses, and get those firsthand. Tweeted out a bunch of those here. And one quote that he did have that really stood out to me is he was talking a lot about the new additions. And he was asked about the new pieces and said, quote, "My job this year, and really what I want to focus on, is empowering these guys." Says he will take over when needed, but he has a strong belief in this roster. And he was also particularly asked about, over time, has his mindset shifted as far as what he looks for in teammates, what he needs around him? And his response was pretty blunt back to the reporter, just saying, "Consistency. That's all I ask." That through the years that he has been here, we've seen this constant turnover of the roster, from the Jimmy Butler days, the James Harden days, Ben Simmons was here, the JJ Redicks, all these guys that have came and went, and it's very clear that Joel wants this to be the core of the Sixers team. And I will say, it does seem like everybody's on the same page. That Joel front and center spoke about how this is not going to be a year where he's chasing accolades or trying to win another MVP. He has done these things. It is now time to win a championship, and that's what the focus is for everybody. Guys like Eric Gordon was asked about what his goal on this team is this season. His response directly, "The goal is to win a championship. That's all I care about." That's the type of mentality that I absolutely love, and I'm seeing pretty much top to bottom with the Sixers roster. Even a guy like Jared McCain, obviously a rookie, a guy who was asked about his expectations, and he was pretty much like, whatever the team needs, I'm there for. That it's kind of funny when thinking about my track record, like going to Duke, being a pretty highly recruited guy, like my expectations coming to college is I was going to be on the floor right away. I was going to make my impact. And he's like, now sitting here on a legitimate championship contender, that can't be the expectation. That I'm going to find my opportunities wherever I find them, be ready as a catch and shooter, be ready as a point guard if that is what they request, and ultimately fill my role. I love that from top to bottom. It does feel like that is the outlook for each member of this Sixers team. And it's very cool to me that I think Joel Embiid is kind of the guy leading the charge for that. There's been some questions throughout really his entirety of career about what type of leader is Joel Embiid. And I do think that sometimes he gets misconstrued. I personally have the belief that the best player does not always have to be the leader. It's certainly nice when it happens and makes life easier, but this isn't like a football situation in which you need the quarterback to essentially be the leader of the team. I think there's other guys that can take that, and we have brought in guys like the PJ Tuckers of the world that were supposed to take on that role. But I think it's really nice that Joel seems to be growing up in a way that we have not seen from him in past years. And I think him walking the walk by losing this weight, by giving them the best chance to ultimately for him to be healthy and for this team to succeed is really showing where his intentions truly are. Now, Daryl Morey was also asked about the management of Joel Embiid. We know the injuries are consistently going to be at the top of the list of concerns, and he kind of addressed things head on here. So I did like this quote from Daryl Morey here, where he was asked about what the tactic is to ensure his health throughout the season, and he said, quote, "We're going to be very smart about how we manage him through the season. We actually have quite a few guys who we need to be smart about how we manage them throughout the season while still maintaining a high level of play." And this question was directly asked about Joel Embiid, but my assumption with that is I do think Paul George is very much included in this. Kyle Lowry is another guy that I expect to not be playing any backs-to-backs, to see his minutes limited. There's going to be some guys being juggled, but the bottom line is that is what the depth for. That is why you sign the Reggie Jackson in the world, why you bring in, the Eric Gordons, the guys that can step in, the Jared McCains, the Ricky Council IV will have his nights where it is his moment to shine. There is a lot of talent on this team. Gershon Yabusele, another name that I thought really impressed me with what he said, the way that he carried himself, and overall, I'm just gassed up that basketball is back. I love that Joel Embiid is walking the walk, that he does seem to be locked in for the season in a way that we have not seen from him in past years. As much as a lot of people threw the critiques about him playing in the Olympics, I think keeping that level of high basketball play was the best thing that he could have possibly done to ultimately have himself prepared for the season. We saw him play high-level basketball in a way that cannot be replicated when he's in a gym with Drew Hanlon, cannot be replicated when you're just at home hanging with your kid or throwing shots up. That was real deal, high-level stuff that he did participate and aided the U.S. team. So shout out to Joel for taking part in that and for it setting him up for success this season. The Sixers have now flown down to the Bahamas where they will be doing training camp. Must be nice to be, jet setting across the world and taking in these nice locations, but that's why it's the NBA, baby. So shout out to them for taking advantage of things. I liked everything that I heard from media today. It does feel like there's a little bit different energy around this team as far as more focus. This team knows that the clock is ticking from an extent of the window to win is right now, especially when teams around the rest of the NBA are just getting better. So I'm going to have another video coming up on this channel tomorrow speaking directly about the Karl Anthony Towns trade to the New York Knicks and why I'm still not worried about that Knicks team as a whole. So hang with me. Make sure you tune in for that. But for now, I do just want to highlight one more time the Joel Embiid losing weight. That this is the type of commitment and quote that should not go under the radar from the big fella here, saying, I think I lost about 25, 30 pounds. Still got a ways to go. Still want to lose some more, but it's a process. We got to do whatever it takes to make sure that I'm that in the postseason I'm healthy. Once again, just absolutely love his commitment to that, him leading by example, stepping up and really putting that on full display. And I cannot wait to see how he's actually moving on the court. Let's see if there is a little bit reduced stress on those knees from running up on the floor, that there's a little less Joel Embiid walking around with him there. So hopefully that is the case and that this is the secret recipe for him to getting back to it. I've mentioned it before on the channel, but you look at a picture of him in college versus him now, it's pretty night and day for how much weight that guy has added, and I understand he was a 19-year-old kid. That little different story and just natural. I'm not going to rag on him for the weight too hard there, but I do think that his commitment to being in shape this season is going to be huge from both an individual standpoint and what the Sixers team needs from him. So shout out to Joel Embiid for realizing himself. Shout out to you guys for tuning in this video here, and in the comments, I want to get a Let's Go Sixers from each of you guys. So we are almost there to actual games being played. I cannot wait to get the season fully going. I'm going to be along every step of the way this season as well. We're doing things even bigger and better in year 2 here on Sixers Digest. So make sure you smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. Let's get this Sixers Digest family growing as large as possible. So smash that button below, drop a like, drop your comments, and I'll be talking to you next time. Peace.